Welcome back, everybody. This is Scene to Movies and Television with Matty and Stephen. Tonight we're going to talk to you about a little old movie called Weird, the YANKOVIC Story, starring Daniel Radcliffe. Diedrich Bader was up in this a little bit. He was the narrator, actually. I didn't know that until I just read that. Lin-Manuel Miranda makes a cameo. We got Rainn Wilson as a supporting character. Lots of people. Toby Huss, who you'll all recognize if you don't know that name. He's been in lots of stuff. Kind of plays the same character, but he's a master of it. And a bunch of other people I don't care about. This was directed by Eric Appel and written by Weird Al Yankovic and Eric Appel himself. Appel, whatever. And this is the Al Yankovic Story review. And to get it started, we're going to do our hot take, baby. And you go first, Matty.
Oh, okay. Hot take. This is a fun movie, and if you have the Roku channel, I highly recommend it. I love what Daniel Radcliffe is doing with his career after making more money than either of us could imagine off of a fun franchise. He never has to work again if he doesn't want to, but I feel like the choices he makes, even if they're not great, they're interesting. And as soon as I heard he was cast as Weird Al, I was like, I'm watching. I don't care how bad it is. I just need to see this performance. And he didn't let down. And I would say if you don't have the Roku channel, you do have to watch commercials, which sucks. Mm-hmm. But it is well worth it. And I thought it was done really well. And I would watch it.
Absolutely. I agree. I think this is a really fun movie. I thought it was quite a bit more fun in the first the first half of the movie is quite good, I would say. For a second there, I was like, this is the best movie I've ever seen. Because another thing is, I thank the Lord herself every day for the existence of Weird Al Yankovic and what he does for this world, for this planet, for his people. Mm-hmm. And, I celebrate anything that he's a part of. I think he's amazing. So, of course, I was going to be there. Also, Daniel Radcliffe to jump in on this role and transform himself into a version of Weird Al that we all know is not the real version, but what he does with it is really fun and really weird. And so I really liked it. I felt like in terms of like jokes and pacing and stuff, it kind of falls off a little bit in the back end. But going into it was really funny. And then to see that Weird Al co-wrote it with the director was like, okay, well, that's what Weird Al's given to me. And also UHF is one of my most favorite things in the whole world, his first movie. Yeah. So it's nice, and I was like, oh, cool. At least they're kind of paying homage to the UHF style of filmmaking, to find that it's, Weird Al had a significant hand in the process itself. So I recommend you watch it. It is super fun, with the warning that, I think maybe the pacing slows down a little bit. It gets maybe a little too stupid without enough knee slappers. But once you take a step back and you see it for what it is and who all was involved, it's pretty remarkable and quite a lot of fun. Funny or Die, they did what they could. You can tell it was a small budget. So I think, definitely. I think it's going to be a cultural thing. I think it's going to be kind of a smash. I was seeing some meme earlier where somebody is like, am I the only one who just went out and bought a Roku stick just to watch this Weird Al movie? And I think a lot of people are excited about it. I think that's both due in two parts to Weird Al's legendary status and Daniel Radcliffe's legendary status, honestly. So that's my hot take. And without further ado, we're going to jump into execution and storytelling. I'll go ahead and jump in here, and I think I touched on this a little bit there in the hot take. I think overall, like Eric Appel is not like a household name director or anything like that, or somebody who is well known as of yet, but lucky enough to be at the head of this project. I don't know what it took to get this project made, or whose hands needed to be shaked to get Weird Al involved, or the inception of the whole thing, but I'm glad it all happened. And I think, for a director who's working with Funny or Die, I think they got a lot out of probably what their budget was, and they pushed it, and they had just enough sense of what they wanted out of it to, have solid execution, I think, throughout. I could have used maybe more, like I said, more jokes, I guess, on the back end. It seemed like they started to really focus in on this like farcical story more so than like the funny things. And I was thinking of Dewey Cox, uh, Walk Hard.
Yeah.
If you've never seen Walk Hard, please watch that movie. I think that's kind of the
Yeah.
goat with this parody type thing. And I think that movie just like keeps them coming, and it stays kind of balanced in terms of its comedic, its yuck factor. So I think, with all that being said, again, once you see just Daniel Radcliffe doing like weird shit in this costume as Weird Al, it's like he could honestly do anything. And I probably would have watched more of it if he ended up on space or ended up in
Yeah.
underground or something. It just like the sky was the limit with what you could do with him portraying Weird Al and it being such like a farcical kind of tale. What do you think, Maddie?
I agree with you. I think the opening is super strong. Like I what I really wanted was a whimsical tale that I knew wasn't going to be super true, but I wanted more truth peppered in. And I think when they get to like when
Right.
Madonna gets kidnapped by Pablo Escobar is when it kind of goes downhill for me. It's not bad, but I didn't
Yeah.
need to see Weird Al be an action hero. I mean, I understand that maybe that's what he wanted from his movie, and if he's making the movie he wants us all to see about his life, that's fine. I watched it and I enjoyed it. Just for me, as someone who watches a lot of film and would have maybe liked a little more truth to the story. Like I
Mm-hmm.
don't know that much about Weird Al. I just know his hits. I never like bought an album, but he was always someone that I would look forward to his next parody. Like, oh, he's doing that. I can't wait to hear what
Yeah.
he's gonna sound like. Where are you, Weird Al? There's all these great songs coming out that are ripe for parody, and I don't feel like you're doing anything with them. Or maybe I'm just not paying attention. Is the thing.
He's actually going on tour. He has a big tour
That's
coming up.
awesome. But
Yeah.
yeah, and I mean, besides, the first half, I was like, kind of like you. I was like, this movie's
Yeah.
amazing, and it's on the
Yeah.
Roku channel, and I don't have to pay money. Like, besides buying the Roku to watch this,
That
this is
was
great.
nice.
Daniel Radcliffe is nailing it. I just I love the part where his roommates are so positive about him being this guy. Just
Yeah.
there's a lot of great stuff in it, and like Will Forte, all these great comedians show up. But I do think not that when Madonna shows up, but when they do the actiony stuff, it kind of lost it for me.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't really feel like there was enough weight when he like kind of like kicks his band out and has to like get basically has to win everyone back to love him again. I don't feel like we really got that moment. It was just like, oh, it's Weird Al, he's back, and you just kind of accepted
Yeah.
that because they would have much rather have done an action movie for the last half. And I wasn't a huge fan of that. I would have much rather have had something a little more grounded, like we were kind of watching, instead of this huge action set piece that I don't think worked as well as they. I thought it was funny in the diner, but then for him to go get Madonna back from
Right.
Pablo Escobar was kind of ridiculous. And I guess now thinking about it, it is funny. But I think when you get to the end of the movie, it's just I feel like there's a lot of time jumping that didn't really make sense. Like he's
Mm-hmm.
doing like you know eat it to then it's like the next song is Amish Paradise, and I was like, I mean, I guess maybe that was like not that much time jump, but I feel like other things should have happened in between us to get
So
us to
many.
Amish
Yeah.
Paradise, and which I do think that like the whole thing with him writing "Eat It" first and then Michael Jackson.
Yeah.
That's hilarious because it's not true, but it's hilarious. I love that his dad wrote Amish Paradise before Coolio could have written Gangsta's Paradise. There's just like a lot of really fun beats and like really fun
Mm-hmm.
things in the movie, but I do think it did like that action scene was unnecessary, and I kind of did that moment where I looked at my phone. But up to
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
moment, I was super engrossed, and I was like, I just don't really care to see him be an action star. But I think they did that a
Yeah.
little bit in UHF too, didn't they? Like parody Rambo and stuff, and like
Yeah, they did. It was like
so
in his head, though,
yeah,
in that one. But yeah, I would like definitely agree. I think that's really that Madonna sequence is really when it kind of diverts. And in
hmm
like true Al Yankovic fashion, I think he probably was like, "No, keep this fucking joke going. It's great. It's great." When I think I agree with you. I think I would have wanted to see the actual Weird Al story play, or
hmm
maybe something a little bit closer to how his life actually played out. So it
yeah,
seems like I feel like he almost got into it and he's like, no, fuck that. That's stupid. Do more of the action stuff
yeah,
almost. Cause when, again, when you take a step back from it, I feel like, oh, like it's almost Andy Kaufman-esque where he's like, lean into this joke, So
yeah,
maybe
yeah,
that
for
was the
sure.
case. Maybe it wasn't. It suffers kind of the same thing I think Pineapple Express does. I love all the stoner jokes. And then once it devolves into this like action thing, it's like, yeah, that stuff is cool, I guess, but I'd rather more stoner humor myself. But talk a little about the characters and performance. Let's just say I think regardless of what Danny Rad or Danny Rad Radcliffe. Daniel
That's what.
Radcliffe was gonna do, I think, just what came out was, just perfect enough to have.
Yeah,
There could have been a lot. You could have went a lot of different directions with this movie entirely. Just because it's such a ridiculous premise and it's such a ridiculous turn of events and everything like that. You could have ended up anywhere. So
yeah.
I think it looked like the most fun for Daniel Radcliffe out of anybody to make this movie, and man, he's jacked.
Dude, that dude is fit.
Yeah. Overall, I love the bandmates too, like you were saying, and how like positive they were and how supportive they were, like right
Yeah,
off, and it took these turns and kind of played on your expectations because it parallels Dewey Cox, I think, a little bit in
hmm,
terms of just the style and the pacing, the tone of the whole thing, just because that's what it is. But the dad was great. The parents were awesome. Like
definitely
it
not
was
what parents should be.
yeah, it was very funny. The jokes and everything were just really on point for that first half of the movie. And I
Hmm.
think, everybody in it, all the cameos were great. I love Jack Black's
Oh,
Wolfman
so
Jack.
good.
That
It's
was
so
so
good.
funny. And pretty much that whole party sequence was really good. And I guess I would have, instead of the action stuff, I would have liked more cameo type things and more rubbing elbows with celebs kind of stuff, because that seemed to really
Yeah.
work very well. Yeah, I mean, nothing to say disparaging anybody or anything took me out or anything like that. I thought even the kid who played Weird Al in like middle school age was really good.
Oh yeah.
When he plays the accordion at that party, that was just wonderful.
Oh, that
But
whole scene's hilarious.
yeah,
The cops come to break up a polka party. Amazing.
how do you
Uh,
feel?
I think Daniel Radcliffe's great. Like I said in my hot take, I will watch anything he does because I do think he picks interesting stuff to put his. It's not like he's out there trying to win Oscars or anything. Like
Hmm.
Swiss Army Man is great.
Oh,
I love Horns, even though I don't think it follows the book as much as I would have liked it to. But I thought it was a weird movie for him to pick, and I think that's like shortly after Harry Potter was kind of over.
hmm,
He does the random horror movie, which me, I appreciate. I think he probably likes the genre a little bit too.
hmm.
But I just like him because he picks interesting roles and he just wants to act. And I think that makes me like him more because he's wants to act and not just like cash in a check or try to win a fucking Oscar or anything like you. I'm
Right.
sure he would probably like to, but if it's he
He
doesn't need
will.
to. Yeah, at some point he'll definitely get older and stuff. And thought Evan Rachel Wood was amazing as
Oh
Madonna.
yeah.
Great to see her in something that's not Westworld. I'm sure she's done other stuff. I just haven't paid attention probably. Rainn Wilson was great. Uh, Jack Black was great as well in it. I love when after Weird Al does the song parody on the spot, his just voice changes to like Jack Black's voice, and he's like, "You're one of the greatest." Yeah, it was
Yeah.
so funny.
That was the most beautiful thing I've ever seen, or something like
Yeah,
that.
and I loved how like
Yeah.
Pee Wee Herman's there, played by I forget his name, but he's from the Lonely
Jorma,
Island. Yeah,
Jorma
uh,
something. Sorry,
yeah.
Jorma.
I love that David Desmalchin was the bass player from Queen, and I loved how he had
He
to
was
say who he
good.
was, and I love that whole thing. I thought it was great. I loved how
Yeah.
everyone had just little instruments. Conan as Andy Warhol was amazing because it's just Conan's
Yeah.
version of Andy Warhol, which is amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought the cast was great. I mean, I it was crazy the people they got. They probably did that for free just as a favor to Weird Al because they're probably buds and
Yeah.
people just wanted to be in it. I will give a shout out to Jeremy Bolm from Touche Amore. Has a couple cameos in it, which I thought was pretty sick. He posted it on his gram today, and I love that band. So it was nice to
Yeah.
see him, and he's friends with, I guess, the director. And basically, the director was like, "Hey, is your head still shaved?" And he's like, "Yeah." And he's like, "You got 2 hours?" He's like, "I guess." He's like, "All right, come be in the Weird Al movie." And he's like, "Okay." So a really fun story
Yes.
of just friends helping friends make movies in Hollywood, and I think those are the kind of movies that you and I are drawn to when like those little small films where directors have to act themselves just because they don't have the budget to do what they want, and it's cheaper that
Yeah.
way. Like Benson and Moorhead, I think, are amazing directors, and I love movies where they just work with the same people and they're just friends. But yeah, I can't really complain about performances at all. I think everyone knocked it out of the park.
The first time he comes up with the parody off of My Sharona, Just the whole sequence of events, how that all plays out was just so great. Knees
Dude.
were getting slapped over here. And just kind of each one of those big songs really had a good lead in. I thought was really funny.
Yeah.
Not necessarily a visual special effect or whatever, but just how they set those sequences up were really good. And I in terms of this category, I'll just speak on that diner fight scene was really cool. Like I was into that fight scene. I thought, okay, this is
Yeah.
cool. Daniel Radcliffe throwing down. He's Weird Al. Like this is super hilarious.
Yeah.
Maybe beat the dead horse in the jungle with Escobar and everything, but all that stuff was cool. I kind of felt like something like that was going to happen at some point when he was having his like Jim Morrison like spiral into fame and just like
Oh yeah.
egomaniac and stuff like that.
Oh, I love when the
Like
band comes in, just playing that like music, and he's like going out. You want to see it? You want to see
that
it?
was nutty. That was
Yeah.
cool. It was like this weird
Yeah.
jam session, and then he pulls out the
Yeah.
accordion. Like that was pretty classic. I think
Yeah.
watching this movie maybe with a group of people, I think would be really fun. In terms of like stunts and stuff, there wasn't a whole lot of that. I think the budget really shows, like when he got into the car wreck and stuff, you could tell they shot that stationary with some moving lights, move the car, and
Yeah.
just stuff like that. So there wasn't like a whole bunch of big set piece kind of things or anything like that. But they really, I would say they used a small budget to a really good effect in this movie.
Yeah, for sure.
Because at times it feels like a Dewey Cox or something, but other times not so much. But you see where they made their money count.
Yeah. Sorry, just thinking of random moments throughout the movie that made me
No, that's
laugh. I
fine.
was thinking of when he has the platinum records on him,
Yeah.
and Oprah Winfrey are like, "Are those heavy?" He's like, "Yes, they're incredibly heavy." Like, I don't know. And then how it plays in later to like the when he goes to Pablo Escobar's compound and stuff like that. I will say that the one gag is that like he does throw one of those discs and kill Pablo Escobar with it, and it
Yeah,
is a pretty
that was
nice
good.
like good effect. Um, I think like Radcliffe playing the accordion because I saw him on some talk shows recently, and he just talked about how hard it was. And he
Yeah.
was on like my grandmother watches like Kelly and Ryan morning show
Hmm.
or whatever. I don't know any of the stuff. I only watch real live TV when I go home.
Yeah.
But I guess someone that works on the set with them was also learning accordion. So they had this moment. He's like, "It's so hard, isn't it?" And she's like, "It's insanely hard." And he was like, "I was just trying to fake it." And he was told this story about like how Weird Al would be like, "Oh, what would you like? Is there anything you would add to my performance of you that I could do differently that would be more you?" And he's like, basically practice the accordion more because
Yeah.
it's like to make it look real. And I do think that as a stunt performer or like an actor trying to learn an instrument and make it look cool on camera, I think they did a good job. I thought that was really cool, and I really like. I know he was lip syncing the Weird Al songs, but I thought he did a really good job, and I think I would
Hmm.
consider that a stunt performance.
Sure,
Because
sure.
sometimes you can kind of just tell me like that is totally not coming out of that person's mouth, and no one sings like that. And I understand that
Yeah.
Weird Al has this very distinct voice, and maybe he tried to do it and it just didn't work. But I do think for the lip syncing and like his performance as Weird Al on stage was really good for a small budget. I do my favorite scene. Sorry, we should have done a favorite
No,
scenes
you're good.
moment because I have so
Ah.
many. But I love when the band they're like, "Oh no, this is not going well," and then they just get up there and they start playing instruments, and they're like, "He's like, you guys knew how to play instruments this entire time. Why didn't you tell me?" They're like, "We didn't think it was relevant." And it's like, what? He had a whole backing. There's just like little moments that I like love in that movie that I just
Yeah.
talking about it and you saying something goes, "Oh, that scene was so good. Oh, that scene was so good." So yeah, I
It
mean,
was
I thought
good. Yeah.
it was a good movie.
Honestly, I think that was probably my favorite moment too, and maybe even the climax, like the or not climax, but like the peak of the film. Maybe like climax, I guess. But yeah, that moment when he's singing Rocky Road, or
Yeah,
however the song goes, is so triumphant, and it's so stupid, because you have all these biker dudes and Patton Oswalt
yeah,
cameo, and they're all singing
yeah.
along to the parody version, and it was just like, this is glory. This is the height of celebrity for
Yeah.
anyone. And so I
I
just, again, I'm so grateful for Weird Al. Tell you
Yeah.
what.
I love when the lady goes up to the bar and she's like, "I want a shot of whiskey and a double scoop of Rocky Road." He's like, "We don't serve ice cream here." She's like, "You better by the end of this song." And you're like, "Oh shit." There's like there's some great comedy in here for
Yeah,
sure.
really
And
good,
it's
very good. Um, yeah, so I think overall it's a blast. It's so much fun. Daniel Radcliffe is great. I hope he does continue on this string of just like, how would you say, just like weird movies, weird parts, colorful characters and things like that, because he really is finding a niche there with these type of directors and these type of films. So I definitely want to see more. The harsher critic in me is saying, you know, it overstays its welcome after a certain point, it feels like, to a certain degree, but like Maddie's saying, just thinking back on stuff that I just saw in the film, I'm like, it's good. It's a little front heavy, we'll say. And that's not a terrible thing. You know, they have a lot of fun with it. And by the time you get it, you know, it's only like an hour and a half anyway. So by the time you get to the end of it, it leaves you with a pretty solid gag too, I think. And so, you know, I think watch this movie. I feel like most people in our age bracket probably right now are probably already watching it. They're, you know, they don't care what we have to say, but there it is. How about yourself?
I agree with you. I do think this movie, if it has a fault, it's great in the beginning, and towards the end it does kind of fall flat, and just, I don't know if it knew what it wanted to be, or if they just wanted, I feel like it was probably a budget thing. Like they wrote this script and probably had to edit it down to get the ending, and probably had a really solid beginning but didn't really know how to end it. Or maybe it just gets into the territory where it's all a joke at the end, where Weird Al just doesn't care if you've made it this far. He's like, well, I'm gonna do whatever I want at this point. But yeah, I would highly recommend watching this if you have the Roku app. It's free. Like I said, my biggest complaint is probably the end, and then it having the commercials throughout it, which kind of sucks, because I do think it does slow the movie down. And I think maybe just streamlining it, watching it all the way through, it could have been more solid of a film. But it does give you those moments to be like, oh, I could look at my phone. Oh, I could get caught up on a text thread. Oh, the Discord boys are saying some stuff. I got to reply back. You know, stuff like that. It lets you. I think I would love to watch this movie just straight through with no ads. Maybe Roku will release a version of that, or maybe you could buy it or rent it at some point. But I do think if you're a fan of music, a fan of Weird Al, a fan of Daniel Radcliffe, a fan of anyone else who makes a cameo in that, it's worth a watch. It's a fun watch, and I recommend it. And I do think sitting down with some buds, getting some pizza, you know, if you're drinking some beers, taking an edible or something, it's going to be a fun experience. And I feel like that's what Weird Al made, was a movie that he would want to watch about himself. And I think he succeeded. And I will probably watch again if my roommates want to watch, because I had a great time watching it.
Yeah, definitely watch with people, I think would be great. It would be awesome without those commercials. One thing I want to add too is Rainn Wilson. It's always great to see him do anything. I wish he was a bigger star than he actually seems to be, because that guy is probably one of the funniest people on the planet. OG office head right here. But Rainn Wilson rules, man. Dr. Demento, that was awesome. Yeah. It was a good time at the movies at home, even with commercials. So that is Weird, the Al Yankovic Story.
Saint!
Indeed. Thank you once again for joining us for another review. We hope you're enjoying it. Remember to like, subscribe, hit the bell notification if you want more. You can contact us at any of our socials at the links below, and leave us a message if you want. Get in the comments. How'd you feel about Weird, the Al Yankovic Story? Come discuss things with us. Join the Facebook group. That's found in our links as well. And we have further extended discussions there. And we play framed.wtf, which is a movie frame guessing game that's really fun. And I think that's all I got. Thank you. We love you.
Yes, we do. Kisses. Bye-bye.